like to call the meeting to order. If we can stand for the pledge, please.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Kim, are you all set with roll call?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, item 3, approval of the agenda. Resolved that the Board of Education approve the agenda for the August 22nd, 2022 regular Board of Education meeting. Can I have a motion, please?
Move.
Tony was first, and Shelley was second. Any questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Oppose? Passes 9-0. I have to remember that Jeff is on the screen. Okay, moving on to correspondence, board activity, and committee reports. On July, we had a pretty busy summer of professional development. On July 14th, some of us attended the NISBA Summer Law Conference in Rochester, and also Tanya on July 28th and 29th attended the same conference, which was done virtually live. Does anyone have anything they'd like to speak to about what was learned?
We learned a lot of information from everything. It was pretty overwhelming for a new board member, but it was a great day, and we were able to really discuss some new changes in education. And Jen sent out the email to everybody so that you all have the information that we received.
Thanks, Sam. I'm just going to add a little bit more to it. It was a great experience. It's the first one that I was able to, opportunity to attend because they didn't have them last year. They did go over, I'm just going to highlight a couple of, or some areas that they went over. And like Sam said, Jen has provided that to all of us. So if you want to go back through and look. They covered teacher shortages and different ways that they have been unique in creating finding teachers for the shortages. Some of them are internships, retirees, recruitment efforts. There was a lengthy discussion about FOIL requests and who can request, time frame for responding, fees, denials. So it was a really good overview for that. They did touch a little bit on collective bargaining, which was all brand new to me. Health insurance, Medicare, how to bargain, and for the different unions. And then at the very end, they went over new laws and regs for different systems or things that need to be in place. And for some reason, I'm sorry, I just have panic alarm system. That's a requirement that districts either look into that. That's for safety of the kids and staff. I apologize, I don't know where the rest of my page went.
That had to do with Alyssa's law that was just passed. I think Shelley covered a lot of things, the different strategies. Thankfully, I don't believe that our district has been in a position. We get a lot of applicants for the open positions we have, but some districts aren't as fortunate. So they're getting really creative to draw bodies to put in front of the kids. FOIL requests is good. Collective bargaining, I think the biggest thing was learning, what's mandatory to be negotiated and what's not, and how careful you have to be so you're not set up down the road when things have been negotiated, and especially in times when there's not a lot of money. That makes it less flexible to make good decisions for the kids that aren't seen at the time, that pop up later on down the road. Just to give, Sam, I think we all talked about how quickly they talk and how many topics are covered and how mentally exhausted you are afterwards. You're trying to process it all as you're trying to spit it out. But it's covered so many things like, residency issues, home instruction issues, tenure, student discipline was a huge one. And then new regulations with the commissioner, new laws. I mean, just the range was amazing. Probationary appointments and long-term subs, and how careful you have to be so you don't inadvertently give someone tenure. That was a huge one that was talked about. Changes to the open meetings law, which we've talked about. Variety of lead testing and remediation, the administration of glucagon. I mean, all these things that, health issues for our children as well. So it covers a wide span of things that we're responsible for overseeing or having knowledge of to make sure we're all moving in the right direction and compliant with the law.
I just want, I just wanted to add, what I appreciated about the experience was the depth of knowledge of the attorneys elaborating on some of the key issues, especially the teacher shortages. I think about the practical sort of strategies that districts can explore in collaboration with units to ensure the most qualified teachers are serving our students. And I want to emphasize that, and I think they emphasize that as well, because we just don't want a body, in these seats. And when we think about specialized areas like English as a new language, as well as special education, just putting a body is not acceptable. And I think they made that very clear in that presentation, the importance of districts securing certified teachers to make sure those roles are filled with qualified people. So,
right, and I think they talked about state ed, trying to build some flexibility in to get people trained as well. For these specialty areas. Just some districts are needing incredible flexibility right now because there's not a lot of people out there.
So for example, for ENL teachers, those interested, there's an Intensive Teachers Institute for TESOL that's grant funded by the Office of Bilingual Education and World Language that subsidizes some portion of an additional master's for anyone who wants to earn dual certification. So there's definitely a lot of wonderful benefits. But it was a great experience as well. My head grew about 2 feet because it was a lot of information. I was hoping that Mr. Germano was there to summarize a lot of legal points, but it was a great experience.
On July 26th, we had a Board of Education retreat.
Sure. Yeah, we can tag team. We did have a retreat. Derek Dorsey from Central New York School Board Association came in to present for us and to lead our retreat. Started off, getting different perspectives and did some, thank you, team building. Team building. It led through the night, and then we did end with trying to make up some goals or points where we want to get to as far as attendance of different committees and where we need to be as a board together, working together. As the first retreat in that specific type of situation, I learned a lot from it, and I hope everyone else did as well.
I'd say that the group is very engaged in the activities, and that those timed activities around the room. What characteristics make a strong superintendent, board member and stuff, and after reflecting afterwards, I started thinking, well, we're all leaders, and whether you're superintendent, board leader, a team leader on a sports team, in a business, a leader is a leader, and a lot of the same characteristics are, come up. So it was good.
The only thing I'm going to add to that, which I thought was really great, and I really appreciate this, Superintendent Thompson, in light of what's been happening across the country, divisiveness and what we're seeing in districts across the country, I really appreciate getting to know my board members, because I entered those spaces with a narrative, some bias, of individuals, and I think it really helped me to make connections, and I think if anything that you're trying to promote is encouraging this group of adults who volunteer their time to learn in these spaces, as Matt and I did during a really great dialogue on a particular issue, to get to know each other so we can come together as a team, despite our differences, despite healthy conflict is good, to be able to build that together. So I really appreciate that.
On Thursday, July 28th, there was another law conference with our law firm for our Fiorenza. Does anyone have anything they'd like to speak?
I can start off, Jen, if you want to piggyback. Jen and I attended as board members, and also Kim and Mr. Allen, one of the assistant principals up at Baker, was also in attendance. There was a lot of overlap from the Farrar Law Seminar Conference that we attended from Rochester, but NISBA as well. I tried to write down some things that weren't, that were covered both. There was a large selection, or a large point about reviewing our board manuals, and sometimes having a board manual can be cumbersome, and making sure that you review it, because sometimes it causes issues as opposed to trying to help. There was talk again, it's crossing over student discipline, issues on free speech, how to appeal different matters. One of the big things that came up, and I think Kim is going to probably be discussing it tonight perhaps, is the school buses with the zero emission school buses. The state is indicating a date of July 1 of 2027, that only purchases of buses have to be zero emission. And I know there's a waiver, and I think Kim might speak to that later on in the meeting, to have that time extended. Jen, what else? Did you have anything else that I didn't
No, a lot of, smaller regulations, a lot of duplication, and really honed in on this student discipline, how important it is not to skip any steps in the process, and make sure the right people are present at certain stages, and the right communications go out, and the legal implications if those don't happen. And the big key, and they usually start off the law conference talking about the board manual and getting board members to understand that those are basically the laws of the school district, and we don't abide by our own policies that can come back and bite us if someone has a disagreement. So, and also staying up to date, and we subscribe to a policy service to help us with that when laws are changed at the federal and state level. So we do have policies that are up to date, but there is also the emphasis that if it's a law, it doesn't have to be in the policy manual. But some school districts feel like that's important to have so people understand the process. So it's, I see both sides of having things in there and not having things in there. I think it would depend upon the topic. On Wednesday, August 3rd, NISBA, we had a virtual meeting with NISBA with our new board members to learn more about the organization that we subscribe to. I don't know if anyone has anything like to say about that meeting.
I'll just talk quick. Again, like all these other experiences, it was great information, great to get to know the people, and basically they just talked about all the services that they offer us and the additional learning tools that they have, so it was good to know that information is there, and they were able to look at that whenever we need a refresher or information on something.
I thought it was a great learning session. Even though I've been on the board for a year, there was a lot of information I didn't know that NISBA provides. I think, Jen, did you forward that? Did you send every stuff on to the rest of the board members?
Yeah, they sent a follow-up email about the questions that we had and links to get the information we need that I shared out with everyone.
Yeah. And one thing that I learned was that after you've been a member for a year, they ask first-year board members to be part of a committee to learn about your first year, what you may have not learned, what you did learn. So I hopefully will be able to attend one of those sessions. I think it's in October or November. But it's just nice to know that it's such a huge resource. Basically any question you can think of, there's a department for it.
Thank you. And then prior to tonight's meeting, we had a facilities committee meeting.
I'd be happy to give a rundown of that. Okay, Joe's gonna pull up a file here, but pretty much we went over all the current projects, everything from there's some smaller 100K type projects going on at Reynolds for bus loop work. We talked about the aid ratios of those, roughly 87.9% we're getting back. on those projects, so optimizing the aid on those. Next one was the 280K project. There's some tech floors at Baker. They're running a bit behind. We're using leftover transportation center building money, but they're running a bit behind, so that is going to push into the school year, which will impact, but they're going to try to impact them, or minimize the impact to the students going into the fall semester. But in the end, have new floors down there. The next one, the 3.8 million one, that's from the, 2 years ago. That's the one that includes some of the sewer work at Palmer, the McNamara traffic circle updates, so we get an update on that. Then last year's, or I should say this past May's Dergy one, the one we just got approved, we were informed that they're doing a lot of meetings with teachers and people in the buildings to start discussing room layouts, how they're going to set up some of those new sections and what types of layouts they want the teachers would like in their room for new learning areas, and I guess that's been going very positive. The committee did request, as soon as we can get some of those things that they're discussing available for review for the board, that they'll share that with us. So I'm expecting that to be coming soon so the board can start seeing how that project's going to start shaping out in the buildings. The band storage building we've been talking about for a little while now, the one that burned down, or at least caught fire. Based on some of the higher cost stuff coming in, they're kind of on hold with that because we're going to see if we can include that and some better options there for the 2023 capital project. So that's been discussed. The committee understood that, so there was no real pushback there about holding on that until we can hopefully optimize the money better under the next capital project. There's a file about infrastructure and infrastructure planning and then how we fund. That's on the screen right now. I would encourage all the board members, if you want to take a quick look at this, it does kind of outline a bit about funding of projects, how the funding works, those kind of things. So if you get some time and you're interested, this is available under the facility committee meeting agenda. Stadium, so there was some issues that came up over at the stadium outside the turf area, but behind the bleachers. There's some sinkholes, as I understand it, that they've been monitoring. They did some ground penetrating radar analysis over there. There's about a 20 by 20 foot section that they're going to have to get repaired here soon. There's some pipes that have come apart. It was clarified that this wasn't part of the major construction when we redid the fields. This is existing stuff that has come apart. So there's some drainage there that's causing erosion, which is causing a sinkhole. So it sounds like we are going to get that fixed as soon as in the very, very near future, so that it's fixed before we start having some of our major events down there this fall for sports. It may not be completely done with concrete and stuff like that, but at least they'll get the pipes fixed and some stone over it, so that at least it's not the hazard that it could become. And then we got into the 2023 project, what we're calling phase 2 of funding the future. So we're able to get a little more update on some of the exciting options coming up that we're going to be considering. So on the screen there, you got potentially the old gym there in the bottom left becoming a 6-lane pool with some stands in there, and hoping for deep enough for some diving events. So that's exciting. And then taking that old space for from the old pool and expanding the gym into a much, much larger facility. And the way it was explained to us, basically the main court in there would shift from that upper part down to about the middle, so that the main court's in the middle, but it could be sectioned off into 3 areas. So I think that'll be exciting for getting more people into the sporting events that occur in there. And then we talked about updating all the locker rooms and the coaches' spaces, we talked about a new lobby entrance there, where his cursor is right now. So instead of the thin hallway we currently use to get in, making a more welcoming, kind of athletic entrance lobby area, maybe incorporate the Hall of Fame there, and then with the science and health areas, refreshing that. Similar, and there's also a bunch of asbestos stuff that we're gonna have to take care of while we're doing it, but similar to the way Derby is evolving, it would be, putting in the funding to update those areas, but then once we get it approved by the voters, then working with the teachers and all that to develop those spaces to give us the maximum impact plus the maximum flexibility of those spaces for new science and health. Then we kept going on to the site work here, so this has largely remained unchanged from what we talked about last year. Expanding that turf area there for bringing varsity softball over from Ray, having all those varsity home games here, but making it all multi-purpose for other things like field hockey and lacrosse and stuff like that. And then adding a modified JV softball field up there by Eldon, and then renovating the current one that the baseball modified JV fields use. So that stays relative. The modified JV fields will not be turf. The baseball and softball and multi-use will be turf with some expanded parking up there. And then part of the we got a little update on some of the traffic study for some of the considerations going in for potentially, we didn't get too much into it, but some of the ideas that might occur to kind of get bus traffic versus vehicle traffic in and out more efficiently. And then lastly on here, we talked, including into this, again, we haven't run any numbers or anything, so we haven't talked cost yet. That'll come in the next few facility meetings, but also including this Ray refresh, doing a lot of the updates to the, STEAM, the arts, the science, the engineering technology stuff, getting that stuff significantly updated, and then just general renovation. So a lot of stuff. We're gonna actually, our next meeting's scheduled in October, but we all kind of agreed that there's a lot to get done here before we can start going out for a vote in May. So we're gonna actually add a meeting in September. And we're also, the last thing we talked about was a kind of developing as a committee a long-range infrastructure plan, kind of like a long-range plan for the district, but focused on infrastructure, which I think when we're going to review it, committee members are going to review it. The initial draft was done by the administrative team, and then we're going to go through and review it and provide our thoughts. And then the thought was, after all the committee members provide their inputs, then we'll share that out with the board so you guys can review it. But there shouldn't be any surprises. It's really summarizing all the things we've been talking about for the last 1 to 2 years, like some of the grade configurations and the building updates, and really just putting it into one document so that there's one place that somebody could come and kind of get up to speed on what our vision is for the facilities and the infrastructure in the district. So I think we all kind of agreed it's a great way to kind of put everything in one place. So, people coming up to speed, new board members, all that, don't have to go searching through past meetings and stuff like that. They can go to one document. So when you guys see that, I don't think there'll be anything really new in there that you haven't heard. It's just going to be a nice, concise summary. So as I said, we're going to meet. We're going to put out a doodle poll so we get another meeting in September and find a good time for that. So that's all I got. So I'll hand it over to the rest of the committee if anybody's got anything to add.
That was so thorough, Jeff. I don't know if anyone has anything else to say. Thank you. Anyone from the committee? No? Good job, Jeff. After that meeting, before this meeting, we had a communications committee meeting. Quickly went over the back-to-school communications with Sarah and what the plan is for that. We did talk about some issues that came up, or questions at the last meeting about the change with the school lunch program and how that's being communicated out. She also went over the Hive plan for this school year, we had it down to 3 and we're just moving forward. The August, we're at 4. The August one will only be going to families going forward, since all the information is up to like 32 pages right now. It's really just information of forms and notifications that are required by law for informational purposes for students who are attending. She also talked about social media strategies for the coming school year and how she's utilizing all the different platforms and when and who she's connecting with on each of those. And then we also started reviewing, she sent out an email today about updating our Board of Ed page and really starting to communicate out what a Board of Education does. There's a lot of questions as to what our roles are, what our responsibilities are, how it works, what the time commitment is. It goes beyond just our 2 meetings a month. And she has that started for us to review and give her feedback, and then once we get a go-ahead from everybody, then she'll actually make that live. And there's gonna be links on there to board docs for people to understand, you know, how a board meeting operates, the different committees, what our goals are. That should be up there, and that probably needs, those things probably need to be updated as well as we move forward. And also links to National School Boards Association, the New York State School Boards Association, which has some great links on the process to run for a board seat, and also some of the things that people don't know about, like the reporting of the financial expenses and things like that, to run for a seat, and all those calendar and benchmark dates to hit. Does anyone have anything else that they want to report out on?
I just wanted to say thank you to the district and the teachers for putting on the summer enrichment camps and programs. I was able to hear from a lot of different families and kids of the great opportunities that they had. My son personally attended one and had a blast. It was the filmmaking class. So thank you to the district and everybody who supported all of those different camps. It was a great, it was great for all the kids and families. Thank you.
Okay, if there's nothing else, on Wednesday, August 31st, we have a superintendent's conference day, and that's opening day for our teachers and staff. On Monday, September 5th, the district offices are closed for Labor Day. On September 6th is the conference day, superintendent's conference day, with school opening the doors on September 7th. On Monday, September 12th, we have an audit committee meeting. That's going to be changed to 5 o'clock, I believe, not 5:30. And we will have a public hearing at 6:15 having to do with our SROs and SRPOs. I believe I have that correct. These were changes that were made this morning. 6:30 with new staff reception prior to the regular Board of Education meeting at 7 o'clock. Moving on to the agenda. Next up on the agenda, we have our student board report by Zahn Ashcroft. First one, the floor is yours.
Good evening, everyone. So here goes the first student report of the 2022/23 school year. Obviously, school's not in session right now, and with that, there's not too much to report on as far as actual student activity, but there are some things that happened this summer that you might not know about. To start, as we all know, Baldwinsville has an amazing music program, and this summer the marching band was able to take part in several events, 2 of the biggest being in Cooperstown, and then as well as Philadelphia for the 4th of July. Outside of the musical programs, athletic programs started today, and I look forward to being able to report on all of the amazing things our athletes are going to do this year. The last big thing that I would like to inform you about is some things that the Student Advisory Council at Baker has planned for tomorrow and Wednesday. The Student Advisory Council, SAC, is a club, if you will, that consists of all the officers of the larger groups at Baker, consisting of members from the 10th, 11th, and 12th grade classes. Each year, the administrative team puts on a 2-day event with the goal of strengthening the team that will work together throughout the school year to ensure that the students are able to be as successful as possible. Across the 2 days, there will be much team building taking place, whether there's discussions amongst the students and the administration, or even simple ice-breaking games. Furthermore, the group will plan some activities for the school year and help plan for sophomore orientation, which will be on the 30th. As a student that was able to take part in this 2-day training last year, I will say that it was a relative success. students felt much more of a connection to the administration and one another. And the general attitude of coming back to school was much more positive than it had previously been. Keep in mind, this was the first year that a lot of us had been in school given COVID. Aside from all of that, I just wanted to add a little bit of my own take on things. As we all know a little too well, the last few years have been a lot different than what we expected them to be. And being that someone that's going into senior year, I will not lie, I'm a little intimidated, but also, like I said earlier, extremely excited. This will be the first time within recent years that we're all able to go back to school fully, for the most part, without there being any sort of physical distance from teachers and students. And I can only imagine how excited all of you, as well as all of the students and all the staff in the district are about that. It's going to be a great year, and I know that myself and other students are excited to find out our schedules later in the week. I do think that's it, so thank you.
Thank you. That was, for summertime is down, our students have definitely been active. And thank you for reporting out in the summer. I'm not sure if we've ever gotten reports like that for some of the summer activities. But you're right, I think that is a big deal for not just you going into your senior year, but some of my son's friends have said the same thing, that this is the first year he's going into 9th grade, the first time that he has started the first day of school without a mask in 6th grade. It's a big thing, a big deal for him, and I'm sure it is for a lot of the students as well. Thank you. Okay, next up on the agenda is public participation. Do we have any speakers tonight? No speakers, so moving on to the consent agenda. Resolve that the Board of Education approve the consent agenda pursuant to the attached. Can I have a motion, please? You guys are.
Tanya, what's your first?
I believe that Shelley was first, and was that Wayne was second? Oh, that was Matt?
No, it was Matt. It was Matt.
Matt. First Shelley, second Matt. Any questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 9-0. Next up is the leadership report.
Thank you. Chris, will you come on up and give up the athletic, physical ed, and health update, please? Thank you.
No, it's on side button. That'd be the apprenticeship work.
Good. Well, as An alluded to, we started athletics, fall athletics today. Football had a little head start on Saturday, so JV and varsity started Saturday to make sure that they can get their 10 practices in before their first scrimmage. So it was great having the athletes on campus today. Obviously the weather wasn't the greatest. I know golf had a little bit of a setback with their time today at Timber, so they'll hopefully be back at it. But it's really the first year where we're back to the normalcy of high school athletics. So that's definitely something to look forward to. I know the kids are really happy for that. Modified will start a week from today, which will be next Monday, so they'll go over that. Another item that we're gonna bring back, and it was difficult to try to get, we used to always do our athletic code of conduct meetings with our administrative team at the high school to touch base with the JV and varsity teams to talk about the code of conduct, the athletic code of conduct, attendance, appropriate use of social media, explaining that it's a privilege, to participate in athletics, and there are consequences for poor judgment, poor behavior. It's not to threaten them, but more or less to educate them that these are the rules of engagement when you become a student athlete. So we have next week, Monday and Tuesday, to go over with our JV and varsity athletes, just to go over the athletic code of conduct, and also give them a time to ask questions. I'm gonna be there for them, along with, as I said, the assistant principals, but just to educate them about attendance, what to do if you're in a bind, who you can reach out to get back on track for that. And we'll continue that process for the winter and the spring seasons as well, just so that it's consistent. and it is gonna be recommended that all of the student athletes and coaches do attend, so we're all on the same page. So that'll be something that will be nice to get in that routine. The other good news, I got a call and an email from Onondaga County, and I don't know the whole selection process, but we were awarded a grant, which really was on nutrition and focusing on APE equipment. And I was a little taken back because it was kind of a pretty cool opportunity, but in asking and discussing with Roseanne, she mentioned that there are a lot of districts that will get this grant. The city is definitely one that's had it for several years, but we are on the docket for the next 5 years to look at our APE equipment and try to come up with, as she mentioned, it was kind of like a lending library that our APE, our PE teachers could use with wish list items. So it's really, you can put anything you want on the list, send it to the county, they're gonna look at seeing what they can do. And as I mentioned, really creating a library for our APE students to use this equipment, share it amongst themselves, elementary, Ray, Durkee, and Baker. So I did reach out to the city just to get an idea of some of the items that they requested, and I also reached out to our PE teachers to find out. So we are looking at getting some of those supplies, and I know the PE teachers will be excited, but most importantly, our APE students will be excited to use that. An item I did not mention here, and I was talking to Mr. Allen at the high school, we did get training this year for Project Adventure, which is our ropes course. So if you've been at the stadium, in the back, the far end, you'll see this like helix and a whole ropes course that they have, and that's kind of been on, I don't want to call it the back burner, but with not having teachers available in the summer, a little bit of COVID situations with getting training, we were able to train 7 PE teachers this past summer, and I've got to give a lot of credit to Mr. Allen at the high school, who really got everything situated with getting people together and doing the 2-day training. So our PE teachers are going to be able to use that as a tool of education for PE. Not only PE, but also planning, skill development with staff if needed. So it's at the high school, small gym, and then obviously at the stadium. So I do know our PE teachers are excited for that, but as I said, it's just another spot where PE students are able to look at PE in a different light. So I do know they're very excited about that, and we got that training going. So that's really what I have on my agenda. Obviously, going over some of the plans for the future is definitely exciting, and very grateful to see that. So we'll have to see how that looks, but definitely exciting for sure.
Hey, Chris.
How are you?
Thanks for the information and all your staff and getting everybody approved for all the sports that are starting this fall. It's a lot of work. Can you just tell me, with the code of conduct for the new athletes on the 29th and 30th, is that being done at their practice schedule? Is it a one-time meeting? Is it, I don't know.
We branched out to the teams based off of their practice schedule, so we kind of found common time on Monday and Tuesday to incorporate everyone. So we sent that out to the coaches so that they'll bring their student athletes. If we had to adjust a practice, we did. In the event a student can't get to it, they obviously can make the Tuesday, and if they miss, I have no problem running one. I just think it's extremely beneficial to have the time to go over this and to see the faces that may have to have conversation about the athletic code of conduct. But it's a very important piece to get back, and again, give the student athletes a chance to have conversation and ask questions about scenarios, what the code of conduct is for them, and try to be as transparent as we can.
I think that's a great opportunity to bring it back, and also there was some work done to the code of conduct for the athletic
Correct, and that's
department as well, so it's a great opportunity to discuss that with all the students.
Correct, thank you.
Thanks.
Chris, if Can you just go into a little bit more about the grant for the APE equipment?
Yes.
It's a lending library, so we're gonna be sharing with other districts?
No, just with our district. So
Okay.
they looked at it, and again, I asked them, like, Roseanne, is this a joke, or she's like, no, we have money, we have funding that we allow other districts to use, and Beeville's on the list. So I kind of stopped there. They talked about the city, and so I used a couple connections that I have just to make sure, and, you know, that's really what it becomes. It is for your district, so you put a wish list together each year, they'll try to chip away at it. But your elementary students at the APE can borrow equipment from high school and vice versa. But it really creates, you know, as a library for those teachers and those students to use. Because right now, we really just have them at each school, and it's difficult to be able to share. If we get a good amount of it, we can set it up where we can get it over to the other schools. So that's really what the gist of it was. They will come in and talk about nutrition, obesity, and things like that. So I'm kind of in the preliminary start of it, but I'm definitely working with them so that we can incorporate the grant and use it to help the students.
And is this a grant that we wrote for?
No,
or-
yeah, back in 2019,
Oh, wow.
the district, Brian Wright started with the wellness committee, and then Julie Carpenter, our former director of school nursing, was a part of that collaboration, and so the county was able to work through that, and certainly the folks at the county, there's a connection to Baldwinsville, and some of them being Baldwinsville restaurant, or Baldwinsville residents, not restaurants. And so that has all been a part, and it's about building healthy habits in students, and so one component of this is having this library where they can spend some money on some of the resources that we need and use it, so it's all a good thing.
So it sounds like a great opportunity, not only for the education aspect, but for more inclusive participation in physical education as well. So that's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that.
Absolutely.
So, Chris, over here, Matt.
Oh, yeah, hey, Matt.
So, the discussion about the athletic code of conduct kind of sparked in my memory your recent comments, and we know that the adolescents can maybe make some poor decisions, but adults can make a lot of poor decisions. So when you spoke up about the not the participants, but the adults in the stands, and how the impact that has on athletics and the ability to have athletics and referees and umpires and things like that. So, I just wanted to make a comment about the positive feedback that I've heard with regard to that and your leadership and speaking up on that. So I just wanted to let that
I
be heard.
appreciate that. I do, I appreciate it, and I hope we can, learn from that and have a successful year. But that's the biggest part, is athletics is an extension of the classroom, and parents, spectators, adults that are coming to these events, they're role models. And they've got to be cognizant of who's watching, who's looking, and setting a good example. But I do appreciate it, and I believe the impact was definitely heard, and we'll see. But it was definitely a good thing. I appreciate you sharing that, Matt.
I was kind of thinking that too when you were talking about it. Is that something that you talk about in the code of conduct meetings with the students to, like, give them, tell them to get their parents in check, kind of?
We will. The spectator policy is in the athletic code of conduct. I believe it's the last page, talks about, and we don't get there often, but it's a 1, 2, 3 offense. The nice thing is the state association is starting to look at adopting a plan, not similar to what we have, but a 1, 2, 3 strike, you're out type deal, to have some dialogue. So I don't know how much we're going to touch upon it. I believe some of the stuff we had, from the spring was big enough. The kids just want to play. They just, obviously they want the support of their friends, family, but they just want to play and not have to hear the craziness and the nonsense that's going on. But if it came up, it's definitely something that we definitely would address, you know, with them on that.
In regards to officiating, is there still a shortage on certain things, or is all that kind of back where it was?
Depending on the sport, I will say it is a struggle with some of the modified, especially in the spring we just had, but football is one where we're looking at having games on Thursdays, Saturdays, getting the schedule situated, and then having to move because of the lack of officials. But it really is across the board. I got a call from Fairport today that we needed to move a field hockey game because they do not have 2 sets of officials, so they're looking to go instead of 1 o'clock for both games, a 1 and a 3. So it is across the board. I hope that, you know, Coach Tyler put something together for softball to get new officials in, to give back if wanted, and to let officials, referees, umpires know that it is a safe place that we try to create. And I think getting that information out is beneficial. It's going to take a little bit of time, but hopefully it will change. You're welcome. Good?
Thank you, Chris, appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Have a great night.
Summer Curriculum and Professional Development Review. Tony, Renee, please. Thank you.
See you in a few weeks.
And Rocco.
So this is a little bit of deja vu for those who were here in the spring. So the PowerPoint just lists through everything that we talked about. It's the same PowerPoint, to be honest with you. What we were offering this summer to our staff. And everything was offered, and anyone who signed up was able to attend. You know, a couple things got shut out because they were very popular, and learning coaches are going to offer some after-school opportunities with those topics. The only thing different in this PowerPoint is we've added that the coaches always seek feedback at the end of every session from staff, and so we put in there some of that feedback from the staff on different sessions. So we're really here to answer any questions you might have regarding the summer PD.
Go ahead.
Me first this time. Thank you. I really thank you for. I know it's similar, but I think it's important to highlight the outside of in-class instruction that our staff devotes to. You know, that it's not just that they go to class, they teach, and they're done.
Yeah.
So I like the fact that we're doing this and we're highlighting this for the public so they understand this isn't, you know, it's not the I'm probably dating myself, but the Ron Popeil set it and forget it type of deal. So thank you for pointing that out for not only myself but for the public as well. That, you know, the actual amount of time that they devote to this craft and making sure our students have what they need.
Absolutely. It was great, you know, to echo some of the stuff that was said earlier. If you have them back in person, and being able to collaborate. I mean, these 3 rooms were busy most of the summer, including the Baker Library. That many staff came out to, you know, they didn't have that ability to really collaborate in person so much the past couple of years. So a lot of good work was done.
I was just going to add, it was nice to see a lot of the social media outlets, teachers, or presenters, learning coaches, put out, you know, what was happening, and that was just nice to see, for everybody to be able to see that. And just a quick question that I thought of, Tony, when you said some of the sessions were closed out, what were some of those sessions, or what were the topics of those sessions?
Really, at eye level, it was the one that was the that second slide, the PD menu, if you clicked on it. It really had to do with really setting up those first 90 days of school. So the learning coaches really hearing everything from the previous year. This really was from K through 12. You know, the challenges teachers faced was really like, let's just take a step back and do a reset, because you really know a lot of this already. We just need to revisit it. It's been a couple of years. So they, you know, instead of what would typically be a one-day session, it was like 3 days in a row. You know, really chunking the information, bringing in the new learning coach for SEL, Jenna Wolkin, and really talking about how to deal with, students' social emotional health. At the same time, talking a little bit about the staff's social emotional health. They really definitely tried to make this fun too. Of how do you begin the year? Let's really take some time and also give time for the teachers in the room to collaborate with each other on how do you begin the year. What do you do?
Thank you.
So the last couple of years have obviously been different, and professional development had to be conducted differently. Did you find that did you have more people involved in professional development this summer as compared to like pre-COVID?
As far as pre-COVID, I don't think so. No, I would say the same. It's just that it had been a little over 2 years since we were able to put that many people in a room and give them that kind of time. So I would say we're back to where we were pre-COVID, getting them together and giving them the time to work on the curriculum, which is obviously very important, but also a lot of different parts of instruction too.
And I love when you start off a presentation, you answer my first 2 questions in your first sentence, so I'm done.
Okay.
I just want to say thank you. I've heard wonderful comments about all the trainings that the teachers were able to go to, and they loved them. I had a lot of in summer school also. They heard that people were really happy, and they were able to be engaged and enjoy all the programs. So thank you for all your time.
Any other questions? Great job, team. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Michael, transportation update, please.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to start off by saying I'm pretty certain that it's not only the teachers and students who are extremely happy about the COVID restrictions being lifted. The drivers are very excited to be able to see their students' faces on the first day of school and to no longer have to load by what we call I didn't touch, there we go. The drivers are excited that they don't have to load with what we call COVID loading, which meant first student on goes all the way to the back, last student on is up in the front. And the challenges that we faced with that were sometimes a kindergarten student was the first student on. And we didn't really have any choice until about midway through last year when we were able to adjust that. I'm going to touch on the highlights here of the transportation department. Because I know what the hot topic is going to be, and I'm pretty certain that's going to be zero emission vehicles. Out of the 5,000 students that are eligible for transportation, something new is about to begin on the 7th, and that's 149 UPK students are eligible for or signed up for transportation at this point. As of right now, 30 of those students are going to require car seats on day 1. Fortunately, this department has been proactive over the years, and all but one of the bus routes will be able to use nothing but the integrated car seats that came with the buses. So we'll only have one aftermarket car seat on our buses when we begin the year, which is pretty neat. We are actually ahead of schedule with our routing. As a matter of fact, I'm going to be sending our bus routes to the district office tomorrow. Okay, it might only be a day early, but it's still early. And in my 12 years of being in school transportation, that has never happened. So I'm incredibly proud of the staff that we've put together in this building, and looking forward to a great start of the year. The other thing we've done when it comes to routing is we have, for those of you who've had students within the district, there was something called a blackout date for daycare and sitter requests. We have eliminated that. As a parent myself, I understand how hectic life can be. We are not going to penalize a family, a parent, a student if they don't get in their transportation request by a certain date. I cannot guarantee that it'll be ready by day 1, but we are not going to make people wait until a certain date. We will process them as fast as possible to make it easier on our families in Baldwinsville. Last year, we did over 1.3 million miles on our school buses. That was 12 million miles in route mileage, over 37,000 miles for summer school mileage alone, and 46,000 miles for extracurricular activities, which would include sports, band, field trips, etc. Our current staffing is currently 1 director of transportation. I hear he's pretty good. We have 3 dispatchers, 1 pupil transportation analyst, and 1 account clerk in the office. 4 out of the 6 office staff members currently hold their CDL and can drive students when necessary, which is absolutely huge. It's like having 4 additional substitute drivers on staff. I actually drove more last year than I had in the last 6 years, I would say. But we did whatever it took to get the students to and from school safely. We've also added an additional mechanic for this upcoming school year. So we have a total of 7 mechanics who all do a wonderful job. And in addition to keeping our fleet going, keeping it safe and having a wonderful inspection rate, they can all drive school buses as well. So again, it's like having 7 additional substitute drivers on staff, which is paramount, especially with the nationwide driver shortage that we're all going through right now. As a matter of fact, last year, right on day 1, all of our mechanics were driving bus routes, morning and afternoon. It is looking up. We are going to be starting with 5 new drivers in September, which is fantastic. We haven't been able to bring that many people on since I've been with Baldwinsville, which at one shot, which has been 3 years, a little over 3 years, and we're starting 7 new attendants as well. As of right at this moment, knock on wood, no office staff or no mechanics will have to drive on day 1. We have everything covered. So again, that is a huge improvement over last year. And again, I'm very proud of the staff for being able to work this out. We have created very much a teamwork approach within the office. Previously, prior to a year and a half ago, it was very segmented. Every individual within the office staff had specific responsibilities, and we have changed that up so everyone can do everything. Sure, we all have our specialties, but it is important that if an individual goes out on medical leave or for an extended leave, that somebody else can pick them up and we don't lose or skip a beat. Same goes with the mechanics. They were very segmented in the work that they did, and I got them out of their comfort zone a little bit. You know, a person who's been doing brake jobs for 20 years, well, now you're going to do preventative maintenance, stuff like that. Just to keep it, I looked at it as an education for our mechanics in the shop. On the screen right now, you see the elementary zone district map. I put it up there just to point out the unique challenges that we have to face when it comes to elementary routing. First one that always comes to my mind is McNamara. Where you see the word McNamara written, that is essentially Radisson. And then if you go to that little green slice all the way down at the other end of the district, that is where those students are attending school. It makes for a very long bus ride to and from school every day, especially when you have to go through the Four Corners, and we all know what the Four Corners looks like on any given afternoon. The other big challenge is Reynolds, not only because it is mostly rural routes, but the separation between the rural routes and actually where the school building is located in Village Green. So again, there is a lot of travel time there for the Reynolds Elementary students. And even to a little bit lesser of a degree, Van Buren, because it is separated by the river and separated by the village. And again, traffic issues present challenges to getting into the school in a timely manner on any given day. You can just take a look at the number of bus routes that we have currently set up for this upcoming year. I will tell you that 4 of our bus routes have been consolidated or eliminated going into this upcoming school year. Last summer we had a consulting company work and make our routes more efficient, and the staff and I have been able to take that even further this summer. So we're kind of fitting what we have for staffing. We're making the routes work for what we have. There you can see our special education bus routes that we currently have. We did not eliminate any special education bus routes. I have my own personal feelings on that. I want all special education students to be as comfortable as possible and keep the load count down so the staffing can attend to their needs when necessary. And there you can see a summary of our out-of-district routes, which include the BOCE's alternate high school and CTE programs, as well as the BOCE special education programs and the private and parochial programs. We were able to eliminate a few routes, which mostly came from private and parochial routes. We do currently go as far south as Cortland, as far north as Fulton, as far east as Manlius, and as far west as Onondaga Community College. So we cover a whole lot of square miles with our bus routes. You can see our current fleet numbers. We're having an issue like many other businesses are having, getting equipment. Normally we would have all of our brand new buses, which we were able to purchase 14 of them for this upcoming school year. Normally they would be in our possession already. The forecast right now is them trickling in between October and January, and that is changing by the day. So unfortunately, we're having to keep some of our older buses up and running, spending money on them to make sure that they pass DOT inspection and that they're safe for our students. This slide is just pointing out that our DOT inspection rate after 285 total inspections was 98.9%, which is right about equal to the Onondaga County annual pass rate for Central New York school districts, which is 99.202%. So our mechanics did, yet again, a wonderful job keeping our fleet going. Just different government operations that we have to answer to with our compliance. It includes New York State DMV, obviously, the New York State Education Department, the DOT, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration, which they have developed a new program, which is classroom training for all new drivers. In order to be eligible to take your CDL road test, you now must pass classroom instruction, and that's got to be on record with the federal government. Safety first to me means everything. Everything else is secondary. We had an absolute perfect record, 100% last year, of making sure all of our students got to school and home safely. And at the end of the day, that is what really matters. We have increased the number of meetings that we hold in this department. My primary focus with our staff is student management. We are all aware of what some of those concerns can be with each passing year, and it's very important to me to stress the importance of strong student management skills to our staff. I've had various staff members from the district come in and speak and work with our staff, which has been incredibly beneficial. The technology that we have as a district is second to none, and I am beyond thankful for that. We have real-time GPS tracking on each one of our school buses, which means in the event of an accident or if a driver becomes incapacitated, I can look right on my computer screen and I know exactly where that vehicle is. I also get notifications, and I'm not sure if I've told the drivers or not, but anytime that they exceed the speed limit or drive hard or brake hard, I get real-time notifications from our routing software. We also have collision mitigation and lane departure warning system on our buses that are 4 years old or newer, so much like the new cars that you would purchase nowadays, where it prevents you from running into something that starts beeping at you, and then it will automatically slam on the brakes so you do not run into anything. Our new school buses do that as well. And it also has a speed warning system as well. This is what I was getting to. Zero emission electric school buses. I do not pretend to be an expert, although I'm learning quickly. A similarly equipped school bus to what we currently purchase, same specifications, is currently retailing or on the market for $440,000. Currently, what we pay is right around $123,000, $125,000 per school bus. There are several grants available, several different programs that are designed to help school districts receive money to aid them in the purchase of these new electric buses, and we've already started that process. We are actually awaiting to hear word from the first grant that we put in. I want to thank Kim and Tiffany for their assistance with that. 2027, July 1st, according to what's out there right now, we have to start purchasing zero-emission school buses. By 2035, again, this is subject to change, our entire school bus fleet must be zero-emissions vehicles. How are we going to get there? I'm not quite sure, but again, the information is rolling out day by day at this point. We have also looked into the infrastructure that it's going to take. I've been in touch with National Grid. Our outside lines, meaning the power lines coming to the property, will work for what we need, or at least that's their initial report. But going forward, we're going to have to figure out the power stations, the wiring, the electricity to get to the back of the lot. How many power stations are we going to need? How many fast chargers are we going to need? At 60 degrees, perfect conditions, even with a double battery pack right now, the technology that exists, we can get about 140 miles on a charge. That will not cut it for our Cortland routes, or the buses that have to go to Manlius, or the buses that are transporting athletic trips, etc. So my assumption is that the technology is going to improve greatly over the next 5 to 10 years. Or things are going to have to change. There is also fast chargers out there, so in the event that a school bus is doing midday work as well, they can come back after their morning run, plug into a fast charger, and in an hour they have enough power to go perform their midday run. That's a lot.
One of our biggest challenges is that we have buses that are well over 10 years old. So when you look at how large our fleet is and how many buses we have, in order to hit those deadlines that the state is talking about, if it's gonna happen, we have to be on the front end of it, or it's going to be a huge impact to the district financially. The other thing that is kind of frightening is we already are toying with buses that are over 10 years old, as I said. I don't know what our oldest one is at this point.
Going on 13.
Yeah, so we know what a 13-year-old bus looks like, and there's been conversation that they may do 8 over 15 years for these electric buses, but I don't know what the difference is gonna be in regards to the bodies in New York winters. So, you know, there's a lot of factors out there. We are trying to get one in. Probably, I don't know if everyone's really buying into this in the transportation department, but kind of my theory was, let's be ahead of it, let's get one in, let's have it here, touch it, try it, so at least we have an idea. You know, you never know if these things are all gonna come to fruition or not, but I'd rather be on the front end and exploring it. We are fortunate that we have a charger on this lot already. It's a very slow charger, but we have one that was put in with the building for cars. So we're exploring different options there to add an additional charger that may be available to the community as well, and there's ways to monitor that and whatnot, but we also need to secure our back lot where all our buses are. So there's a lot of factors going into it. Of course, facilities will be talking about it, architects are involved, so we definitely are all in and exploring what we can as information's available.
Questions?
Yeah, a couple. Thanks, Mike, that was great. Great presentation, and certainly appreciate that. Just a question on the grant. I don't know if we have any detailed information about how they're gonna make the awards. Just a quick cursory look at the EPA website. So $500 million in 2022 clean school bus rebates. So that equates to about 1,135 buses around the country. So how are we gonna get one of these grants? How great is our proposal writing?
So the only reason we really applied was because after we talked to a rep that came in, a lot of districts aren't looking into it right now. So even though on the surface, if you look at the qualifications, we shouldn't qualify, I felt like the only chance we would qualify is to be on the front end of it before all the other districts were seeking the funds.
100% behind you on that. I think that's great you're out in front of it, so kudos to the team for looking into it. Is it only electric buses, or are there other clean energy sources that they're looking at as well? Hydrogen, et cetera?
As of right now, it's only electric buses. Unfortunately, the school bus world, much like if any of you are RVers, campers, whatnot, the technology that goes along with them is behind the times. There's no doubt about it, so we're just trying to catch up.
Yeah, I'm just trying to imagine a cold weather day with all of our buses parked out there still plugged in, so.
Yeah, I don't really want to picture that right now. The only advantage is instead of bringing the mechanics and myself in every morning at 5 o'clock to get the buses running and heated up during the winter, I can actually just pick up my phone, hit an app, and all the buses will start warming up.
And the electric blanket that's on too, so. One other quick question for you. The routes that were eliminated, can you talk a little bit about those 4 routes?
I sure can. Essentially what we found going with the revamped routes from last year is we were able to combine routes to keep us afloat last year. And those routes that we were able to combine, we actually looked at more carefully this summer through the redoing of our routes and realized that we can combine these routes. The students are not going to be on for an extended period of time. And it's just going to work well for us. It was kind of an oversight from the company that did it last year, and we just kind of tweaked it and made improvements on it.
Okay, last question, I think. We touched a little bit on it in the facilities committee meeting earlier. As part of the called optimization of the routes, is that are we getting recommendations as to what we can do? I know one of the statistics that was thrown out in the facility committee was that Kim, I think you said that some buses were idle for 7 or 8 minutes on Oneida Street or something. It could be up to that. Are there things that we can do proactively to look at how to have better routes and drop-offs?
Well, in terms of what you're referring to, like the 7 or 8 minutes of idle time, we are staggering the start times compared to last year in hopes that it will improve the traffic situation on Oneida Street. One of the big things why we hired the company that we did last summer was to make our routes more efficient. And they did a wonderful job, but they're not from here. They don't understand the Baldwinsville area. So what we did this summer was take what they gave us last school year and tweak it to fit our needs better and make our routing more efficient.
All right, one more question. Has to do with the maintenance costs. I mean, in terms of the budget and what you see regarding delivery dates and the new buses coming in, are you guys comfortable with where you're at in terms of the budget, or looking to revamp in terms of maintenance costs or part availability, et cetera?
No, I do not believe at this time that we're going to have to revamp the budget for maintenance purposes. We were proactive. We try to be proactive. We never know when a student is going to have to step on one of our buses, so we keep them at a level where they're going to pass DOT inspection, regardless, even if it costs a couple extra dollars at that moment.
One of the things that we're always looking at is, what is that break point of a newer fleet versus paying to repair? And it's at the point where our fleet is on the older side, and we've done some things. One of the things we did this year was went back to purchasing the full framed smaller buses that will last longer than the van style buses. And people that were sitting around the table last year, we talked a lot about this for a number of reasons. So we're trying to play with that. It's not something that we can turn around quickly when we have as many buses as we have, but we're definitely always trying to do that. The mechanics keep a very close eye on which buses need to go. So we may have a 13-year-old bus because we surplused a 9-year-old bus that we were spending more money on to keep running.
Mike, Tony over here, hi. First, a comment, again, I can't say enough last year how, just as a parent, my experience with the bus, it was phenomenal. The drivers, the attendants, they were just great, and I can tell you that it's sometimes overlooked, but the bus ride for students is a part of their day. It starts their day and it ends their day for a lot of kids. So you know, the fact that they were excited to get on the bus and excited to see their attendant and driver, and you know, just giving them that comfort level, you know, from a parent perspective is great. And I commend you for that, and I think you've done a lot of work since you took over. So I would agree with you that the Director of Transportation is pretty good. You know, the one we got.
Thank you.
From what I've seen over the last year, you've done a lot of work to really streamline not only the efficiency, but the efficacy of the Transportation Department. And I appreciate that as a parent as well as a board member. I did have one question. On the slide you have about the inspections, why do we have double the inspections of the other districts in Onondaga County?
Well, it really is quite simple, actually. There's only 2 other districts comparable in size to ours in Onondaga County, and that would be North Syracuse and Liverpool. And although Liverpool is actually a bigger school district, what most people don't understand is we have about 20 more bus routes than they do because of the rural routes that we do have here in Baldwinsville.
Thank you, and again, just even though we were double the county average, we still hit the same number. So
Yeah.
it just, you know, it just reinforces my point. Thank you.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
All of those are on a schedule. It's not really a choice of ours. The DOT basically dictates when they're gonna touch every single one of our buses.
Just a
More
quick,
questions here?
oh, you have a question, go ahead, Jeff.
No, I can wait, it's fine.
Okay, I'll be quick. So I just wanted to say thank you for keeping our kids safe. I really appreciate that. I also appreciate the practice of eliminating the blackout dates. That's a big significant step. I mean, when we think about inclusive practices, right? Not all families are able to sometimes make deadlines for whatever reason. So that for me is a big win. I really appreciate you and your team for taking that step. I do have a question about recruitment. You know, reading the struggles districts are having recruiting, what do you think was your formula as a team to recruit 12 new people on the team to get people to join the district?
Well, I do believe it's a number of factors. We actually did a job fair for transportation, food service, buildings and grounds facilities last spring. And we were able to get a couple people in at that point and start the training process for transportation. The social media blasts that Sarah has been doing on a weekly basis, I think that is a huge help. Back in the day, I would look at the Sunday newspaper for job ads. I don't think many people are doing that anymore. It's all about the social media. So I think what Sarah has been doing has been a huge help. I think once we can get people into this building, one of the things that I do with a strong candidate after we interview them is I give them a tour of the building right away. Before we even offer them employment. If I have a good feeling about them, I'm going to show off this facility and I'm going to talk about how great this district is. And I do believe that is helping as well. So I believe it's a number of factors.
I always go back to the fact that it's word of mouth. It's the people that we have working here that like working here that's talking about it out in the community that's helping us.
A couple questions here on the screen here. Right now, I think we get 85% reimbursement on buses. That's state aid right now.
Yeah, that's another one of those that changes a little bit every year, Jeff.
Do we think we'll see much change in that for the transition to electric buses, or has there been any talk about that?
Well, I don't know about they haven't exactly provided us that information, but we are up to do our non-allowable pupil decimal this year, which we will be submitting. And with the transportation facility moving, that's gonna impact our aid ratio because there's a thing called deadhead miles between where your buses sit and the first pickup, which now impacts us because we're not on the same campus with our schools. So it will be interesting once we get that data in.
Second, have you guys started looking into what it's gonna take to retrain the mechanics and stuff with the new technologies, or?
They actually have been a part of a few sessions with me when we brought different companies in to go over the specs of an electric bus and how they work and whatnot. They're giving a little pushback. You know, they're diesel mechanics. That's what they like to work on, but they're going to have to get on board quickly. And I just say that because I'm picking on them a little bit. They're old school, but you know, like anything else, they'll adapt.
Thank you, and thanks for all you do.
Thank you.
Hey, Mike, over here, Matt. Oh, sorry. So just one thing, kind of building off Tony, I mean, nobody's getting rich, driving buses or as an attendant or even as working on them. They do what they do because they like what they do and they want to get kids to and from school safe, no matter what role they're playing in this building. And you're gonna learn, I mean, you've got a plan going into the year, but you're gonna learn things over the first couple of weeks in terms of those routes and that. Other than a little bit of patience, what would you ask of families, you know, as you go through that process?
Actually, that is all I would ask, is for a little bit of patience. Usually, it takes us 10 to 14 days to smooth out the routes. And I'll actually touch on this here as a follow-up. You will see our drivers out holding sheets of paper on the first day, the first 5 days, the first 10 days. They're actually reading route sheets because you just can't memorize 25 stops with the students who are come along with those stops. So I ask for patience. That's really all I ask for. Buses are going to be running behind. You know, the drivers are, as always, being cautious while they read the next stop, they put the papers down, they drive on. So it takes extra time. They're also trying to learn the students. And then in addition, some of the drivers are going to have the responsibility of buckling in students in UPK into their car seats. So it's going to take even a little bit longer than usual. We are looking into currently new routing software, which will tie into tablet devices for each school bus. Essentially, it's GPS routing for school bus drivers. You can turn the screen off and just listen to the directions that are coming over the GPS, which is my preference. I don't want drivers staring at a screen. It will give turn-by-turn directions and let the driver know exactly that next stop is 300 feet, 200 feet, stop now, that type of thing. So we are looking into that technology, which will make the opening of school a little bit smoother down the road.
And just as an additional comment regarding the patients too, just as a reminder to the board, and what we traditionally do is that first week of school, the secondary buildings, there'll be notification going out. They'll be out a few minutes early compared to the traditional ending time, so that they can get back to the elementary schools to be available for the elementary dismissal time, so that they're home on time. So that first week, and then we phase that out starting the following Monday.
Mike, I have a quick question regarding procedural. With the UPK students that are required to be in car seats, so did you say that they're already a part of the bus, or there's a number that are like a regular car seat that needs to be placed into it?
No, they're actually, with the exception of one bus route, which requires an additional car seat, each one of our buses, or I should say 80% of our fleet, has integrated car seats built right into the actual bus seat. So it's just a matter of flipping those up, and they're good to go for the UPK students.
So along with that, you said there would be at least 30 as of right now, UPK students requiring that device. So how many of those students are on each bus? Because I'm thinking about, I also indicated in answering a question about that the bus driver will have to seatbelt those students in. So how many, if you know how many kids, how many students that require those car seats are on one bus, and have you configured in that extra time, or will there be an aide on the bus for those children?
Excellent questions, and it's questions I'm getting from parents every day, so I appreciate you bringing it up. The most, how do I put this? The students, there are 3 students on one bus route that require car seats. That's one route. Every other route, the 30 students are spread out, and it's either 1 or 2, so those students will fit into one seat, if that makes sense. And it just happens to be this, the passenger side second seat that the integrated car seats are built into, because they theorize that it is safer for them because of the seat back. So that's where they're always located. We cannot move those seats because it would actually change the DOT floor plan of each school bus. As far as aides, no, we will not have aides on the buses with UPK students. We actually employ, and I'm going to get technical with you for just a second, we actually employ school bus attendants here in Baldwinsville. And according to the New York State Education Department, the attendants are there based on a student's IEP. So in order to get the state aid that Kim and I so often talk about, we cannot just put an individual on a bus route for the sake of having somebody on there. That would actually be a school bus monitor, which as far as I know, the only district that has school bus monitors, which is to assist the driver, is Syracuse City with First Student.
Thank you so much, especially for that clarification with the attendants and the monitors. What's the age that the students have to be in a car seat on the bus?
On a school bus, 3 years old, they have to be in a car seat. Once they turn 4, as long as it's an actual school bus, they no longer have to be in a car seat.
Thanks so much, and also piggybacking everybody, what you've done with the department over the last few years with the help of your team. I know a lot of drivers are very appreciative, a lot of happy families, and so thank you for all your hard work.
Thank you.
Anything else for Michael? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everyone. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Trip request, Joe? The first trip request we have here, this is a traditional event for the boys and girls cross-country team to compete in the Manhattan College Cross-Country Invitational. You will notice that every student has their own bed in this proposal, and we'll be looking for final approval at the September 12th meeting. The questions on that trip? And that's pretty routine. Next trip we have listed here is for the girls basketball team to compete and participate in an event over the December break. This will highlight too, each student athlete has their own space, 3 to a room with either 2 beds or a pull-out portable space. And there are no school days missed for this event as it is over the December break. Questions regarding this trip? All right, thank you.
Okay, moving on to new business. Item A, resolve that the Board of Education appoint a board member as a voting delegate and an additional board member as the alternate for the 2022 New York State School Board Association's annual business meeting to be held virtually on October 17, 2022. Can I have a motion, please? Tony first. Did I read that wrong, Kim?
You just need people.
Right, but how do we go through that process to have that discussion to determine who to plug in there, and then do I just reread it again with the members inserted?
Oh, you're fine.
I'm fine? Okay. I think Tony was first. Tanya got a second. All right, we need to have a discussion to figure out who to insert in there, so I can reread the resolution.
Jen, can it be readdressed for some of the new members? I don't know if Tanya was, no, I'm sorry, for Woodbury Enright, because they were describing what this actually is and what the role is before we nominate somebody to be in that position.
Well, I don't know if we need to nominate. Is there anyone
Or
currently interested in attending the NYSBA convention? They do it virtually now, and it's all of the advocacy that they've done and what direction the School Board Association, all the members across the state want them to advocate for students. And we go through all the different items when it's released to the board members, and we give you direction as to how we would prefer you to vote and represent us in that meeting.
I can do it. Or
So-
I would be willing to do it, I guess.
So there are the dates, the training dates, and I believe one is a virtual option, and then the actual meeting. Are you available for all of those dates?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Is there anyone who would like to be an alternate in case something happens where Wayne won't be able to represent us and speak for us at?
They did say that I'm sorry, I'm glad she nominated her, offered, because I was gonna say they do want newer people to do it, so I wasn't sure if you had said that, right? They generally want it to be a first-year person?
No, actually, it could be anybody.
Oh, okay.
Anybody on the board can do that.
Gotcha.
It's a great learning experience. I enjoyed it the first year I went in Lake Placid in like 2017. I learned a lot about the advocacy branch of school boards and that role.
Thank you.
The
So-
other question I had is, the October 17th meeting, is that a facilities meeting day for the board?
There would be a committee meeting, I'm not sure which, I think it is facilities. Is that what they said at the meeting? And Shelley attended last year, and you arrived, just to give you a heads up, you arrived late to the regular board
It
meeting.
was like almost 4.5, 5 hours, I believe. Maybe not 5, but it was long. It was longer than 3 hours. I know, I'm sorry, guys, but it was very interesting.
Can we change our mind? No.
Yes, but no, just to be prepared for that, and that's a great question, Sam, because if you were on you have another meeting or, to attend to. But it is rather lengthy and not to scare
It
anybody
traditionally started in the morning. Do we know what time on the 17th this thing starts?
Yeah, they did it, that was the same time I think they started last year.
Oh, okay.
Maybe
It's
at
under
5, because I
design.
remember getting here much later,
Okay.
around 8:39 or something.
Oh, okay. I did it the first year they went virtual during the pandemic, and it was a morning thing. And usually when it was held live at the convention, it was always the beginning of the morning, but I didn't realize it went to evening.
Well, if it's okay, I'll just stay for like an hour and then come to the facilities.
So we would need someone to be there technically the whole time to vote for each one of those resolutions.
Just to clarify,
Oh, so you would.
the alternate does not need to attend at all.
Right.
If the primary is there. That's just in case Wayne can't make it.
Right.
So the question is, Sam, is if Wayne can't make it, are you willing to be an alternate and stay for the entire meeting? Or you are? Okay, thank you. So for process-wise, Kim, I just reread that, inserting the names, and then, okay. All right. So result of the Board of Education appoint Wayne Davison as the voting delegate and Sam Shraven as the alternate for the 2022 New York State School Board Association's annual business meeting to be held virtually on October 17, 2022. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 9-0. Item B, resolve that the Board of Education approve the textbook adoption of The Stage of the School by Harry H. Shanger to be used in grades 10 through 12 performing arts and technical theater 1 and 2 pursuant to the attached. Can I have a motion, please?
Move.
Shelley first, Frank second. Any questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That would be 8-0, Kim, because Tony's not, had to leave for a second. Oh, he was? Oh, I didn't see him leave. Okay, thank you for catching that. Item C, resolve that the Board of Education approve the amendment to professional services agreement for athletic training services between Syracuse Orthopedic Specialist, PC, and the Baldwinsville Central School District pursuant to the attached. Can I have a motion, please? Frank is first. Second is Wayne. Any questions or discussion?
I have a question.
Sure.
How does this work? Like, any student athlete is able to take advantage of the of the athletic trainer? Is this something new? I don't think it is because that's an amendment.
Correct. So the original agreement has been in place, and we actually did this through the bid process when OCM went out to bid a couple of years ago. So it's a certain length in the agreement. When we went through the budget process last year, if you recall, Chris Campolita spoke to us about the fact of adding a part-time athletic trainer in addition to that full-time. So that's what this is really all about. We were filling in with per diem. Now we will have a specific person for that additional time that we needed.
Thanks, Kim.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? All in favor? Opposed? Passes 9-0. Item D, resolved that the Board of Education approve the agreement with OCM BOCES Board of Cooperative Educational Services for facility use commencing July 1st, 2022 and expiring midnight August 31st, 2022 pursuant to the attached. Can I have a motion, please? Frank is first. Second is Matt. Any questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 9-0. Kim, am I going slow enough for that? Okay. Item E. Resolved that the Board of Education approve the agreement with OCM BOCES Board of Cooperative Educational Services for facility use and provision for ancillary services commencing September 1st, 2022 and expiring midnight June 30th, 2023 pursuant to the attached. Can I have a motion, please? Wayne first. Second, Matt. Any questions or discussion?
Quick question, this is an annual thing that's done, correct? Like every year
Yes.
we do, okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 9-0. Item F, resolved that Emily Hayes be appointed school district treasurer effective August 15th, 2022 to June 30th, 2023, and that Timothy Lynch serve as deputy school district treasurer in her absence without additional compensation. Can I have a motion, please?
Move.
Shelley is first. Second is Frank. Any questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 9-0. Item G, resolved that the Board of Education approve the five-year renewals July 2022 to June 2027 of the following intermunicipality agreements, fuel contracts: Plainview Fire District, Belgium Cold Springs Fire Department, Northwest Fire Department, Seneca River Fire District, Village of Baldwinsville, and the Town of Lysander pursuant to the attached. Can I have a motion, please? Frank first. Second, Tony. Any questions or discussion?
I just wanted to add, I mean, these are pretty routine things, if there was any significant changes in any of these.
The only thing that we changed is we went from a percentage for the administrative fee to a flat fee based on the number of fobs they have, just because of the fluctuation in the field pricing and an incentive to make sure we don't have extra fobs flown around.
Any other questions? Go ahead, I'm sorry, Shelley.
That you don't have extra what floating around?
Our fuel system is a fob system, so they have to have a specific fob for each vehicle, so if they surplus a vehicle.
Thank you, I just didn't I didn't hear you, thank you.
Any other questions? All in favor? Opposed? Passes 9-0. Item H, resolve the Board of Education approve the employment agreement between the Baldwinsville Central School District and Brian Wright for continued employment with the Baldwinsville Central School District effective August 15th, 2022 through June 30th, 2023 pursuant to the attached. Can I have a motion, please? Shelley first. Second, Matt. Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Passes 9-0. Item I, resolved that the Board of Education approve the Baldwinsville Central School District budget calendar and process for 2023-2024 pursuant to the attached. Can I have a motion, please? Tony first. Second, Frank. Any questions or discussion? I wanted to point out that there was a change made to the calendar that I'd like the board to have a discussion on quickly. On the calendar, let me just go down to that. The calendar, right now, the Meet the Candidates Night and the budget presentation is scheduled for the same night as the board meeting on May 8th, I believe it is. I'm pulling it up now.
And while you're pulling that up, the title is 23-24 calendar. Am I reading that right? But
Yeah.
we're looking
Because
at the
it's-
22.
Well, because we're planning the 23-24 budget.
Okay. Well, the title's 23-24, but the document reads 22-23.
Right, because we
Oh,
start the planning
got it,
process
got it,
early.
got it.
We're just trying to confuse people.
I'm on board. Sorry, it's getting late.
So traditionally, we have had the public budget hearing and the Meet the Candidates night on the Tuesday 1 week prior to, and having that as a separate night. And I'd like to see if any of my board colleagues have any thoughts on this proposed change first.
I have a little bit of a concern. In the past, they've always been separate, and that's quite a bit of information for the public budget hearing, and then of course, meeting and hearing what the candidates are about and what they want to serve or for and as, and then to tack it on to another board meeting. I just think it'll be a pretty lengthy meeting, and I don't want any information to be lost, or people come and then go and not stay for what they wanted to say, to come from.
Was there a reason this was changed? I mean, somebody put it out here for a reason.
I think that the intentions were good because it's been difficult to get everyone together, so it eliminates a night. But I think we need to think about, you know, who Meet the Candidates is for, and the public budget hearing as well. And, you know, reflecting back to when Meet the Candidates started, and I was trying to remember if it was like 2016 or 2017, and really, is this not a conversation for tonight, but something we need to, you know, revamp? You know, just regurgitating like, you know, a bio that night, is that really sufficient in what the community is looking for? You know, because really their questions should be able to be asked. So maybe the format should change, but my concern from a time period, a scheduling period, we don't know how many candidates are going to run each year. So, you know, having a potential possible committee meeting, maybe not prior to that meeting. Right now, there is a facilities committee scheduled that evening, but Kim said that we may not need it. I don't know with all these projects. But, you know, how much do we want to squeeze in? We want to give the community ample time to ask questions on the budget if they choose to, and not be pressed and rushing people out for a 7 o'clock regular board meeting start. Those are just my thoughts. You know, I think part of the idea was, you know, like I had people coming up to me reflecting my first year. My second time running, it was virtual, there's nothing. But my first time, I had people coming up and asking me more specific questions afterwards, and affording people in the community time to do that. And plus, maybe do we want to redo how we do it so people are getting questions answered that are important to them in choosing candidates, instead of, this is what I do, this is what I've done, you know, and I want to be on the board. You know, we have more engagement in the community for sure, and just filling those needs.
Yeah, I guess now that you put it that way, with putting it on top of a regularly scheduled board meeting, seems like a lot, because the budget presentation's a lot to absorb too, on top of Meet the Candidate. So I think I retract my motion in a second, and would ask that we think through it a little bit more.
So so do we have to vote on that tonight, or do we table that for a formal change, or can that just be inserted in here now with that's gonna be?
Yeah, we could
We can do a
approve.
TBD. We
Yeah,
can approve it.
I mean, we could approve it with, and then revise it. We've
Right.
revised other things with the budget calendar in the past. I'm not sure, I'm just concerned the dates, we wanna get the dates out on the website, cause the website right now has some stuff from this year and some stuff for next year, you know, like we're in that in-between point. So we can hold it if you want.
Or can we have someone make a motion, say, I make a motion to make a change to the document here and insert the date of the 9th for the public budget hearing and Meet the Candidates, and then take action? Or actually, how would we do that? We'd have to have a first, second, approve the amendment, and then vote on it, like in here?
I would just, my recommendation would be to approve it right here with the understanding that we're gonna insert an additional date forthcoming.
Well, and we can bring it back on the next board
That
meeting
next
with the
board meeting,
revision, and re-adopt it again.
Yeah.
So are we looking at having it as a date other than, I'm not sure what the legal requirements are as to when we have to have that prior to a certain number of days prior to the actual vote?
Both are acceptable, both dates that we're talking about are acceptable for that purpose.
So we're in agreement that we want to have it on the 9th, but we're going to take action on that change later.
I'd like to
Is there-
explore it more rather than taking your recommendation, Superintendent Thompson, and discussing it further. Just a clarifying question. Historically, those two meetings have been on the same date, correct?
No,
No, they
historically, the board meeting has been the week before.
Okay.
And so there hasn't been 2 meetings back to back
Okay.
on a normal year based on the cycle, because of when they allow you to have the public hearing.
Okay.
It just so happens that this year, and the reason they were put together when we were talking about that at cabinet, was the regular board meeting was gonna fall on the 8th. So would the board want an additional meeting the next night? And there are a lot of districts that have them on the same night. Certainly makes for a longer evening, but
Right.
so that was the rationale. Typically, it just hasn't fallen in that cycle.
Thank you.
So it's all based on the number of Mondays in the month of May and how that falls.
Correct.
There is a legal amount of days before the vote, though, that we have to hold that budget hearing, right?
Correct.
Or something,
Yes.
which is what? Which is 1 week, or?
It's between, like, I wanna say 7 and 14, so either one still works.
We could, the Tuesday after the first board meeting in May would have worked until
The 9th.
this, right. No, technically the second in next year's,
The
the second,
or the
this, it has to be held between the second and the
9th?
9th, yeah. something.
Okay. And there's no legal requirement to hold the meet the candidate, not that I wanna get rid of it, I'm just saying, the only legal thing we gotta worry about is the public budget hearing. But
Correct.
we've always done those 2 on the same night. So we
So I'm
can pick
looking-
the second or the 9th.
So, do we wanna put something out?
Jen?
We're trying to decide between the 2nd and the 9th.
Well, actually, as I'm thinking about it more, and I'm messaging with Tiffany too, but if we could take a look at it, because if we're not gonna do it on that date, if we could do it earlier, because what happens is we have to send out a couple notices that have to be after the public hearing, but within a certain amount of days before the vote, so the closer we do that, like if we wait until that 7th day, it's a tighter time frame in regards to the mailing. So if we could have that discussion and just make sure we're within the guidelines, if we could do it even that Tuesday before or the week before, it might actually help stretch those dates out for publication for Sarah.
So you're looking to have that conversation, make sure the dates are set before we move forward with this change. So it's either gonna be the 2nd or the 9th. No, 8th, no, yeah, 9th, yeah, 2nd and 9th.
That's what I would like to be able to take a look at it and look at the publication calendar with Sarah. I mean, I don't think it's gonna matter, but then at least we can speak what makes the most sense so that we're not bumping up against those deadlines in the 99th hour.
So what's your recommendation with us approving this tonight based on, I'm not sure what you have where information-wise on the website. We don't want to confuse anybody in the public. So what is your recommendation?
So-
Approve this as is?
Yeah, and then we can even, or you could even approve it with a TBD date for that one specific thing, and then we can bring it back on the 12th if you're okay with that, if the rest of it's all okay.
You did just say that.
She says it's so
We're all
much
we're all on the same page, I think. Is there anyone who opposes having TBD there for right now? We approve it with that, and then we bring it back once you get clarification as the best with the information with Sarah and Tiffany for the actual date. Okay. So do we have to have now the process? Do we have to have a motion to insert TBD?
I think you should probably have
Is it
somebody
easier
recommend.
is it easier to just table this until the next meeting? Or
with
do
this-
you really want it for the
Yeah.
dates? Okay, all right,
Can
so
I make
someone
a
make a
motion?
motion, yeah. So making a motion for what you have to be specific.
I move that we insert TBD into that calendar for
Meet the candidate.
the Meet the Candidates public hearing.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Who said that, Matt? Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 9-0. So we'll put that back on to the next meeting. Thank you, everyone. Whew. I know, I feel like we haven't done this in a long time, and that's new. Okay, so we are on J, thank you. Item J, that's on the next page. I can't really see my screen. Resolve that the Board of Education approve the Baldwinsville Central School District tax levy and tax rates for the fiscal year 2022-2023 pursuant to the attached. Can I have a motion, please? Matt first. Sam, you have to say it so they can hear.
Second.
Sam second. Any questions or discussion? All in favor? Oh, that's not, is that on? Oh, it's not listed here. Thank you. Is it?
It is not,
Oh,
but
okay.
it is a roll call.
All right, thank you, Matt.
And I don't have my list up, so I'm just gonna go, oh, thank you. Wayne?
Yes.
Anthony?
Yes.
Shelley? Yes. Jeff?
Yes.
Frank?
Yes.
Jen?
Yes.
Tanya?
Yes.
Sam?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to item K, resolve the Board of
Oh,
Education.
wait, I forgot John. Oh, did I say John?
No, you didn't.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
I voted.
We just need to get back to the swing of things. It's been, we haven't met together in a while. We have to get back to the basics here. Item K, resolve that the Board of Education authorize the M&T Bank Purchasing Virtual Card Program limit be changed to a blanket limit of $950,000 per month for the 2022-2023 school year. Can I have a motion, please? Frank first. Second, Matt. Any questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 9-0. Item L, resolve that the Board of Education approve the disposal of surplus equipment and instructional materials pursuant to the attached. Can I have a motion, please? Shelley's first and Tony second. Any questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 9-0. Item M, resolve that the Board of Education approve the Type 2 State Environmental Quality Review Seeker Resolution for the 2022-23 project for Baldwinsville Public Library pursuant to the attached. Can I have a motion, please? Wayne first. Second, Matt. Any questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 9-0. Item N, resolve the Board of Education approve the letter of understanding for a student enrolled in the Cato Meridian Central School District to participate on the Cato Meridian Girls Modified Swim Team at C.W. Baker High School in the Baldwinsville Central School District the 2022-2023 school year. Can I have a motion, please? Shelley first. Second, Matt. Any questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes 9-0. We now move to Board Roundtable. I sent out an email. Let's do the two quick ones. We had a conversation. We started talking about board committee alternates since there was a lot of interest in 3 of our committees, specifically the facilities policy and DEI. We were having a discussion about people filling in. When Jason made this recommendation last year, we didn't have all of our committees completely filled, all the slots. So wondering where we are right now, if we want to offer that opportunity or not to people who are interested if there's an absence. It's a good thing to do just for learning and having 4 voices at a committee meeting. However, if you're an alternate, even if you're not there, you really need to keep up on all of the reading because we can't take time at committee meetings to bring you up to speed. It's almost kind of like, what do they call those in theater, like understudies? You have to keep up with everything all the time, regardless of whether you have a voice at the meeting or not throughout the year. So that's all I want to say before we make that decision as to what we want to try or not try this year.
I think it's unlikely that you will not have board participation at a committee meeting with 4 people on each committee. So I think from a continuity standpoint, it doesn't make sense to me to insert people into the decision-making process of the committee. Any one of us can attend any committee meeting that we want to as a spectator. So I don't see any significant value in trying to figure out alternates and all that kind of thing.
The continuity is good. Having 4 voices is good all the time if we choose to do that. I'm pretty indifferent. You know, my push for it initially was the concern of not having, you know, people present. And like I said, there was a meeting where I said, and last year I was not a member and I couldn't speak, and I didn't speak, but we didn't have any representation there. But we did have 4 people for all of our committees this year, which is the first time that's happened since I've been on the board.
I agree with Matt. I think, you know, just in what you said, I mean, it's the amount of work to keep up with it. I think if we're regimented, and Jeff and Shelley both did an excellent job tonight with recounting both committee meetings that took place. I think if we, if we're disciplined and taking notes and reading out the minutes of those meetings, I think, to me, I'm not sure why we have the alternate member be a part of the meeting. I think we have plenty, so my 2 cents.
I agree with that as well. My stand was shifted once I knew that all the committees were filled this year. Is everyone okay with just keeping the approval of what we've already approved then and not making any adjustments with alternates listed?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, let's move on. We have some district committee assignments, and I sent an email out. They're district committee meetings, but we have board members sit on them, and they were the strategic planning committee, the mental wellness committee. Help me out here. There was a safety committee and code of conduct. Thank you. I know that Kim sends out an email later in the year for this one when we need to represent for the safety committee. Code of conduct, I talked to Dave, and you send that out later in the year looking for volunteers, which, you know, if we're not going to have those committees until later in the year, people's schedules may change, so it may not be worth getting people for those now. Strategic planning committee, we are starting those committee meetings up very soon into the school year. Last year, it was Frank, Joan, and myself on that committee. We can have up to 4. So I know I would like to stay on it. I know we have Joan to fill, we have an empty seat to fill, and I haven't had a chance to connect with Frank because I've been out of town, whether you still have time to be on that.
Yeah, I'd like to stay on it just because of the let me get the document name right, the long-range infrastructure plan. I think there's a tie-in with the strategic plan, so having some continuity between that and that committee, that's all right.
Okay, and I know I saw 2 emails today. I know Sam sent an email, and Sam was on that committee as a employee of the district and as a community member when she retired, so that she's interested. And then Tanya sent an email, and I don't know if anyone else is interested, but that would be 4. Okay, and those committee meetings are at what time and about how many? They're usually right after school, correct? And they start early, like 2:30 or 3. So I don't know if that's a issue with your work schedule.
No, just I don't know.
Okay. Okay. All right, so that will be the 4 for the strategic planning. It would be myself, Frank, Sam, and Tanya. The next item quickly, we've talked about, we approved our board district goals, but we did that super eval board self-evaluation with Sam and Wayne and Tanya, didn't participate in. And it's all about improvement and identifying our kind of internal operations goals for this year for self-improvement. And I looked over the data and the comments from the board self-evaluation that we did at the end of last school year, and sent you guys an email about some topics that we may want to consider. I don't think that we need to have this conversation tonight, but I wanted to put that out there with those ideas for us to consider. There are 4 of them. Improving communications with our stakeholders, understanding roles and responsibilities. We did a great job tonight. I thought big improvement with the professional development and sharing that information with our board colleagues and with the community. And then when we're working with Derek Dorsey, one of the goals we did talk about, but we didn't finalize, was attendance at committee meetings and board meetings, and what the expectations are and what our goals are. So, were you about to say something? Oh, okay. So, I don't think that we need to set those, but we probably want to set a goal to have those done by the end of September so we can get those inserted into super eval so we know how we're evaluating ourselves when we use that tool at the end of the school year. Sam, do you have a question?
Is there any way that we can kind of be brought up to speed on what happened last year?
So that email I sent out very early this morning, in the early morning hours, has the 4 things that I pulled off, but that's just my perception of how I read that. If areas like the new, like Tanya, Wayne, and you really don't know yet where the issues were, like for internal operations, but you're more than able to present ideas for our board goals.
Well, I think it'd be valuable for them to see kind of the results of the last evaluation to kind of.
Oh yeah, you know what, I can send that as an attachment because we are going to be scheduling the training for super eval. Are we gonna be doing that with just the new people or a review for the whole team? How do you envision that?
Based upon where each board member is as far as familiarity, I'm gonna leave it as an option, but most certainly for the newer board members. That was my thought.
So yeah, there is a way to download that right from the program and attach that in an email for everybody because they won't have the codes or anything to actually get into super eval yet. So I can do that. Did anyone else have anything for roundtable? Just wanted to clean up some things and get ourselves on moving forward.
I did have one thing. With the kind of some of the increase in communication that comes our way, to provide some type of guidelines for formats in terms of, accessibility to the information. I mean, obviously probably the easiest way and the most secure way for people outside of the district to communicate to us is through plain text in an email, as opposed to attachments and logging into external accounts and things like that. So, I think that if people are expecting us to read things, we should put some expectations in terms of what format we should receive those.
If I could piggyback on that, I think one of the things that Matt is talking about that I have an issue with, and I think Frank probably does too, is when people send Google Docs, that I do not open those items because I don't know where they're coming from. I don't know what's in them. I don't know what's going to happen when I open it. I don't know who's getting notifications. There's too many unknowns about those documents that I know. So I agree with Matt that we have to have some sort of, there has to be an expectation that certainly I want to hear from everybody, but it has to be something that is plain text accessible or something that's secure enough where we know it's not going to infect our system. So, especially with all the scams going on lately.
100% agree with both of you guys. I think we absolutely have to do that, for sure.
And to add to Tony's point, I mean, in the past, that has been used as, people who have sent us things, say, via Google Docs, and those of us that choose not to open them for the reasons that Tony just mentioned, we have been called out that, only one person or 2 people cared to open it, but for other reasons, we did not open them for whether it be security or whatever, but, so yeah, I totally agree with the conversation that we should set the precedence. If you're gonna send something like that, send it in a PDF so all board members can have a copy of it.
So is there something on our website for the board page that talks about communication and how to contact board members with our emails? I'm wondering if something can be put there. And then, you know, not everyone's gonna read that page, but if we get something like that, we can send a polite email back that, can you please put this in an email format or a PDF so the board can review?
Plain text is probably, I mean, I would advocate that we just want to keep it at plain text. If somebody can't cut and paste and put it in an email, you know, if you can't take the time to do that, I think it's a two-way street there.
I do think PDF is a general safe way to send things to if that's an alternate, but I would not be opposed to that PDF, but other kinds of documents are challenging from a security point of view.
Well, just,
so I'm thinking
just in
about,
general, I mean, there's
you know, if
nothing.
someone's sharing like a flyer with us that's already created, you know, they're not gonna be able to put that, you know, in an email, so as an attachment, help me out with technology here.
Well, I'm looking at the board webpage right now, and one thing that's missing to me, I mean, we have all of our emails on here, which I would suggest that maybe as we're revamping the webpage, we put a contact the board here, and maybe it's just a lot of information pages, a landing page where you can go in and attach documents or what you're writing for with contact information and have people fill out the form.
I was gonna say, I think that I've seen that on some Board of Education pages as well.
I'm actually surprised that we don't have it. It's the first time I've really looked.
So can we, I guess that would go to Sarah or, okay. We could do that. Wait, are you talking about a general form that just
Talking like
goes?
a contact form. So like if you go to, I don't know, any web page where you want to contact customer service as an example, and there's write your name, your issue, whatever, and if there's supporting documents or an attachment, you're able to just attach it to the web page. It's probably something Sarah can look into very quickly. There's plugins to do it on the web page.
So then it would just automatically go to the entire board?
Would assume that it gets scanned for viruses first and then sent to us, but yeah.
I can speak with RJ in that regard and Sarah too. So then, just for clarification, you want me to remove each of your individual email addresses?
I'm not sure we want to do that because some people are just more, I think we get more information because some people are more comfortable, they know some of us as long as we're always sharing it. So this is, you know, an interesting conversation right now. I'm not sure what's best for our community members for contacting us.
I think, I have no problem with my email remaining on there, but I do think that we need to have some sort of,
Like,
something that says, if you are gonna communicate, you know, understand that we cannot, I mean, you know, I read our technology policy. We are actually not supposed to open those Google Docs. So, you know,
I mean, even if it's a disclaimer, it'd say that this is,
right.
You know, if you expect somebody to read it, it has to be kind of within these guidelines.
Yeah, submit it through the form landing page on the Board of Education website or something. It should be a pretty simple instruction.
Yeah, and I don't have any problem with my email address being up there either. I mean, the form or a single email would eliminate the pick and choose who I want to send it to. But you know, either way is fine with me. Without having something communicated out to the public to say that this is our expectation if you want me to read it, you know, it's a little bit difficult to say I'm not going to read it because you didn't send it that way.
Sorry, just real quick. I think you can keep, in my opinion, you could keep the email addresses there, but put them at the bottom. But encourage people to go to that landing page to put their comments, questions, contact us here. still wouldn't be keeping our email addresses away from everybody, it would just be putting them somewhere else. I know when I look at a web page, my attention span would probably wane as I get towards the bottom, and you know, if it's right there to show me how to contact us, that's the easiest way for everybody to get notified.
It may not hurt also on that same page to, you know, let them know that generally any email sent to a board member is shared with the rest of the board. So, you know, there's less incentive to just send it to one or two, because we'll all see it, so it might be worth putting.
It would definitely, to your point, Jeff, it would definitely save whoever's president from having to forward, and obviously the president still have to respond. So how does that work with like the administrator? How does that work technology-wise, like the administrator of a group text like that, or a group email like that? Because my assumption is if someone's emailing the board, it's just the board members who see it, and obviously be shared with the administration. But if they're sending it to us, we should be the recipients of that. So how does that work technology-wise?
So if you're doing like a contact, like Frank's talking about, it's a plugin that's just directed to a certain location. It can be directed to all board members, it could be directed to all entity, it could be directed to one person. It's just the way it's set up. So RJ will certainly know how to yeah.
Okay, so
I was just gonna say, it's similar to the tip line that we have for reporting. People can report, so on that form it asks for the person's name, number, email. There's a place to fill in things. We just have to check with BOCES to make sure they would allow an attachment if they needed something to be attached, if that's what you wanted. But within that tip line, the way it works right now is in the background, all of your email addresses would be listed in the programming component of it, so that it goes to all of you. Similar to right now, the tip line goes to Dave Kilcourse as HR and the building principals.
Yeah.
So I have a couple questions. So that's the only, we're discussing, so that's possibly the only way we're gonna have community members or whomever send us an email? Okay. Additional, okay, and then how do we communicate that out to people? Because right now, they know just to send an email to whoever they want. I mean, whatever specific board member or administrator and a board member, or, I mean, we all pass it around, but how do we change that how do we let people know that?
they have to get our email addresses from somewhere, and I'm not sure if they're going right to our page with all of our emails. But we can have a group, email the board, it goes to everybody.
Right, but let's say a community member or whoever is sending the email they only want it to go to one person. It doesn't really matter, I guess, because then it's all shared with everybody anyways.
Yeah.
I just don't know if that's a deterrent for people to express whatever they need to be. I'm just.
But that's also transparency. Like we want everybody to know that if you send it to just me, I'm going to share it with the entire board. I want to be transparent in that as well.
Right. I'm just kind of thinking out loud too. Okay.
Well, they would have the option too, if you have that group email, and then you still have your individual email. So, and then of course you're gonna have people call you or text you, or run into you at a sporting event or in the store or what have you.
So I guess I'm just trying to figure out. I thought we were talking about it to eliminate attachments and that
Right.
type of thing.
Yeah, well,
So now we just have another source for people to contact.
I think part of the discussion is to include on the page some further information about if you're sending an attachment, it has to be, PDF or more preferably, like Matt said, plain text, because we cannot open certain documents due to the security restrictions of of our organization. So.
Anything else for roundtable? Thank you, Matt, because when I was out of town, I wanted to make sure you all got the emails, and one of them was a Google Doc. So thank you for bringing that to our attention.
Yeah, no, thanks for everybody for taking the time to discuss that.
Anything else for board roundtable? Moving on to Item 10, resolve that the Board of Education enter into executive session to discuss collective negotiations pursuant to the Taylor Law to discuss the CSEA contract and the employment history of a particular person or corporation, or the medical, financial, or credit history of a particular person or corporation, or matters leading to the appointment, employment, promotion, demotion, discipline, suspension, dismissal, or removal of a particular person or corporation. Can I have a motion, please? Frank first.
Second.
Sure. I'm not sure. Did someone say over here? Wayne, second. All in favor? Opposed? Passes 9-0. We'll go into executive session, 5 minutes.
Hey,
Jeff, I'll send you a link.
Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Thank you.